Yeah, well, for a long time I've just believed that our present way of life is unsustainable. I don't think we can afford all the services that we're getting, and particularly in medicine and schooling. We can't afford childminding the way it's going, and people are going to have to look after one another. And we certainly can't afford the healthcare that's going on. So my proposal is that I think we're going to have to move back to the situation that still exists on the continent, but very little in Australia, where 3 generations live together, so that they are helping one another, and the older generation, the grandparents, are teaching the young, and the young are looking after the grandparents, and the people in the middle are hopefully going out and making enough money so everyone can live. Well, it is a pooling of resources financially. At the moment, when people get old and they have to go into care, they're actually taking their houses, and so they're lost to the family, so there's nothing to pass on. Whereas if they all get together and if they're all responsible and they look after one another, then they should be able to maintain these things, and obviously they can live more cheaply if they're helping one another. Well, certainly it's less of an impact on the environment, and I don't know, I think it's probably just a better way to live.
Yeah.
The whole idea of this and the approach to it is that, and I've spoken to a town planner friend of mine, and this is the plan that we came up with, that we have the main street is out the front here, and then we have the old lane in behind, which used to be the old Dunny Lane. And this will now be used for all the car access, so you're not parking cars on the street. Anyway, to run you through the site, to do this I decided that the way to go about it was to get 2 small sites. So there's a little site 10 by 25 and a slightly larger one 12 by 25. So the whole thing is only about 500 metres for the 2 sites. And in doing this, I put the old people, the grandparents' house, on this smaller site, so that if the people ever wanted to, or if it was ever forced on them, they could sell the larger site off. It depends what they wanted to live in. Anyway, to go over the larger site, this has got the main house on it, and I've done this in modules so that they can either be made in factories or flat packed, or they can be, some of them can be made and just trucked in. This is the dining module, dining kitchen module, and the living library module, and the laundry out the back with a drying yard here. And then what I've done is I've opened up all the corners of these 2 buildings, and we've got a big cover over the top of this, so this is all a weatherproof area. And the idea is that this all then becomes a congregating area. Or what I have done is put a lovely big courtyard in the middle of this, so that people have got space. If you've got 0 lot lines all around these boundaries, so it seemed to me, rather than having, and there's no sort of, you're not compelled to give boundary clearances, so there's 0 lot lines. And so for me, to be able to live in the middle of these things and not feel cramped up was very important. And with children, I wanted to have a grassed area so that kids could grow up and they had somewhere to play. So this then became the main entertainment area. But the other thing that is coming out about these shared properties is that people just can't get away from anything, and they can't get off on their own. And so what I've done is I've made these little meditation modules here. There's one here and one here, and there's another one up on the floor above. and then the guest bedroom here has got its own courtyard, and that once again would be a little private meditation area. This one I've used vertical gardens to close it in, and we've used vertical gardens in these three positions on that side. So we're getting greenery into the whole complex without taking up land space. The kids these days don't want cars, they'd much rather go on public transport, and the reason for this is because they can't text and they can't work their machines if they're trying to drive a car. So this in turn will probably be a good thing, because hopefully it'll take traffic off the roads. And so the car park on this side here I've turned into a bed sit. Now this would either be, it could be for a student, it could be for a family member, or it could be for a carer, because we're going to have a situation where people in these places here will eventually get to a stage where they need a carer. If the family can't do it, and if they're badly disabled, then the care is going to become a must. Population is becoming so unhealthy that you're getting now 2 generations. You might get a mother and a child both needing care at the same time and both being in the same situation. So what I've done here, I've made a guest room, but I've figured that could become a second residence for somebody who was disabled, so the old generation would go here and their children would come into a situation like this.
This relates back to Gabriel's generational housing. I've done these boxes with drawings of family groups. They will all have little stories to go with them, like bathing the dog, posing for the family photo, comparing the grandchildren, all that stuff that goes on in families and is an important part. The wedding, the weird stuff that goes with the wedding rituals.
And so how does this relate to the housing that Gabriel's trying to do?
Because it's about families, and this I've made it more concrete with the actual blocks of simulated housing areas.
Living areas, yeah.
Yeah, living areas with family groups hanging in them. These are all made out of wire, painted. So
it shows you that you can live in the same space, but
yeah,
still all do your own thing, right?
Yeah. And they're all completely different sorts of families. So here's a single dad with his kid. Here's the arguing parents, the kid just watching. Here's they're probably gay women dancing, the little meditating kid, the trainer brought in there, the big bruiser dad and the little gentle kid trying to make peace. That's the only bit of colour in the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's every kind of family that's now emerging in society, that's probably always been there but now being recognised, where you might have a group of like-minded people who decide to get together and often become stronger than blood families. So it's not just your old nuclear family with mum, dad and a couple of kids. They can look after each other, they can learn from each other. The young kids then learn to relate to the old people and vice versa. The old people can look after the little kids for a start, and then it reverses. The middle group would be the ones who go to work, the way it's always happened in, and still does, in what we call third world countries, but in many ways their communities are much more advanced than ours. We have all our childcare setups and our aged care setups. We've had those options, but it's getting to the point where we can't afford all that, and it's not working. All the groups are too separated, there's no respect. younger ones for older ones and vice versa. So that if they can learn to live together and learn from each other, hopefully it will make a better society.